A lot of the work we have done is focused on the mathematics of looming. Looming is a type of beading that uses a loom, like the one pictured here. The loom is strung with horizontal threads called warp threads. Then beads are strung onto a vertical weft thread and then are woven onto the warp threads. To create designs for the beadwork, students were introduced to a template similar to the one Christina uses to plan out her designs. On this template, the rows represent the spaces in between the horizontal warp threads. The number of rows corresponds with the width of the beadwork. The columns correspond to the vertical weft threads on which the beads are strung. The number of columns represents the length of the beadwork. The patterns for the grade 2 lessons were influenced by Christina's geometric motifs. We called this the down the stairs pattern, and it was introduced to the students in order to orient them to the rows and columns of the template. When we first introduced students to this pattern, many of them didn't initially identify this as a repeating pattern because most of their previous pattern work had been done using horizontally presented red, blue kind of repeating patterns. Many of the students had difficulty accepting this two-dimensional design as a repeating pattern. Notice the numbers at the bottom of the columns. These numbers come from Christina's work and identify how many beads of each color are in each column. Both the colored squares representing the beads and the numbers reveal a multitude of patterns. This design supports students to explore a number of mathematical concepts. Some of these include number facts adding to 5, part-whole relationships of numbers, the fact that larger quantities are composed of smaller quantities, the idea of compensation. For example, if you want to maintain 5 beads in a column and you take 1 purple bead away, then you need to compensate by adding 1 orange bead. This also illustrates the commutative property. For example, 2 orange and 3 purple beads is the same as 3 orange and 2 purple beads, illustrating the fact that 2 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 2. This ties into the idea of equivalence. So 2 plus 3 is equivalent to 3 plus 2, 1 plus 4 is equivalent to 4 plus 1, and so on. Students also notice the spatial arrangement of the beads. Columns 1 to 6 make up the unit of repeat, or the pattern core, which repeats every 6 columns. Each of the colored halves of the core is made up of 15 beads, so there are 30 beads in total, and the 2 halves are congruous, with the orange section representing a 180-degree rotation of the purple section. The next pattern the students were introduced to is the down the stairs, up the stairs pattern. Think about what mathematical ideas are illustrated by this pattern. The students copied and extended the 2 patterns onto their own paper templates. Copying the pattern allowed the students to get a sense of the space they would be working with, a space composed of rows and columns. Then they used manipulatives to further explore this and other kinds of patterns, like the diagonally striped candy cane pattern. The students then created their own designs, which they used to construct their loom bracelets.